So this is a little bit unexpected, and it's something that I was actually just sitting and journaling about. So I thought, why not? Let me share. So this is really about change. And I say this all the time. If you're in any of my programs, you've heard me say this. Business is literally the catalyst for personal growth. And if you're hitting a ceiling in your business, a lot of the time it's a personal thing, it's a personal growth thing, it's a personal life thing, more than it's a business thing. There's something that we're doing, or it's a pattern that we have that is keeping us from kind of moving to the next level or moving forward. So I wanted to share with you one of my biggest patterns, and something that really I struggle with and have struggled with like all the way along, whether it was in my real estate business, whether it was when I started the Listings Lab. This has been something that has been a pattern, and it's been really hard for me. So I even took some notes. I'm gonna like have little tidbits where I'm gonna like read from my journal today. If you're watching this, please say hi to me. This is a big share for me, and it's something that, you know, is, I think, really important for us to all kind of know and all kind of remember. So this is really about kind of like the killing of this selfish pattern that I've had for so many years. And it really allowed me to kind of get to the next level of my business, whether it was my real estate business or it was this one. When I started the Listings Lab, honestly, it was, I found myself repeating a lot of patterns that I'd had to break when I was you know, selling real estate. So I broke the pattern in real estate, or I thought I broke the pattern. Then the pattern reemerged again with this business, because guess what? Our patterns are our patterns. So really, at the end of the day, this was kind of like the thing that gave me the biggest breakthrough. And is one of the key things to what I teach now, because it is so important for us to be able to break these patterns. And I know that a lot of people who are in real estate have either broken this pattern or are struggling with this pattern now. So I thought, you know, back in the day, the fact that I was a lone wolf, that I was someone who liked to do it all myself, could do it all myself, was one of my biggest strengths. It made me self-sufficient. I was always in control. I was proficient at every part of my business, which I do think that you need to get to a point where you are. But at the end of the day, it ended up being what was holding me back. It was just something that I used as a safety mechanism. And I think so many other agents use this as a safety mechanism. It came from a fear of failure. It came from a fear of trusting other people, trusting the people around me, and only believing that I could trust myself. Really, at the end of the day, it was not wanting to be responsible for people. If I failed, then I was only responsible to myself. It was really like not wanting to be open to feedback or criticism or anything else from other people, that like I was doing my own thing. I was a lone wolf. I was doing my own thing. I could do it all myself. And what ended up happening from that is it led to not only a ceiling for my business and for me as like a human, but it also led to a lot of burnout. It led to burnout, it led to exhaustion, it led to disenchantment. I really got to a point where I was actually like really stressed out and unhappy, because I was doing absolutely everything in my business. And I think a lot of us have experienced this over the years. And we've said, you know, well, I don't have really good balance, or I have no work-life balance, or, you know, we blame things outside of ourselves. It's my clients, it's, you know, it's this person, it's that person, it's, you know, it's COVID, it's whatever it is, right? There's always a reason why it's not us. But the truth really is if you're dealing with any of the symptoms of being a lone wolf, which is burnout, exhaustion, feeling unhappy or unfulfilled in your business, feeling like you're stuck and you can't grow, a lot of that I think is so important to remember as we decide that we are ready to grow. And I think a lot of the time too, we end up thinking small in terms of, I will only be able to achieve X number because that's all I have time for, and I value my family. You don't have to not value your family to have a great business. You know, you don't have to not value your time. In fact, I would actually say that being a lone wolf really truly does mean that you don't value your own time. Yeah, it means that you don't value your own time, and that you don't actually value the things that you are claiming are really important to you. So what was I doing in my business? I was scheduling calls. I was making calls. I was doing showings. I was doing paperwork. I was writing offers. I was having partnership meetings for larger partnerships that were coming up. I was doing everything, every text message, every email, every single thing went through me. And I thought that that meant that I was the real CEO of my business. I felt pride in the fact that I was doing all the things. I was, and really what ended up happening is I felt like I had nothing left. And I really felt like everything was on my shoulders, and the weight of that over time really started to wear on me. But at the end of the day, I was still so attached to this pattern of I do it all myself. I am Superwoman. I can do everything on my own. And I know a lot of you've heard the stories of the fact that like I scaled to 7 figures essentially alone. And it wasn't fun. The first time around, it was not fun. And it was exhausting. And I ended up on medication. And it was not the way that I teach it. And it's not the way that I ended up doing it. So the first time I went to 7 figures was not the way that I would suggest doing it. I think that it will drain the life out of anybody and everybody. And the next decision that I had to make was, what kind of a business was I going to have that was actually going to serve me? What kind of a business what kind of a lifestyle was I going to have? Who was I going to be? And what patterns did I have to break? And what did I have to work through in order to get to that next level? Okay. And a lot of that was really, really hard for me. I had to let go of all of the control, all of my trust issues, all of my micromanaging tendencies. I had to let go of them. And I actually had to figure out how to train, how to trust, how to let go. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And honestly, that's not how, the way that I was doing it before was not how I was prepared to live for the rest of my life. And honestly, like I said before, the pattern started to reemerge when I started the listings lab, and it took me a little bit of time for me to really grow and trust my team, which I fully do now. In fact, almost everybody here has probably at some point spoken to someone on my team. They are all incredible. So I wanted to be that person. I wanted to be that woman who chooses growth. I wanted to be that person who wasn't holding myself back. I wanted to be that person who was going to allow a proven system to work for me, right? I wanted to be that next level version of myself, and it required me to let go, and it required me to grow. So I started making choices accordingly. Even in moments of fear and like really terrified fear, I still had to let go, and I had to choose the future of what I was building and the future of what I wanted my life to be over the fear. A lot of the time when we think about fear, the fear comes up, we feel it in our stomachs, we feel it in our bellies, and we think, this is a red light. Fear is not a red light. Fear is actually more like a yellow light. And the way that I look at it is fear is really the barrier that I have to get through in order for me to get to the next side. Whenever I think about fear, fear is just my ego telling me that I want to stay where I am now. I want to stay comfortable. And the people who really grow and the people who really create amazing things in their lives are not the people who only listen to their fear. Okay, we are not living in a time where saber-toothed tigers are chasing us down the streets. That fear and that activation that we feel in our bodies comes from a time where we weren't safe. We are safe now, and you are safe to grow and make decisions and be bigger and bigger. Okay, so what did I want to create? I wanted to create a situation or a team where I was helping my team, where I was growing, the business was growing, and we were helping so many people. The reason why this is important from like a vision standpoint is a lot of the time people in real estate don't really understand the impact that they're truly having on people's lives. This is people's largest, most scary decision that they make is actually moving. It's their largest investment. And we've heard that over and over again, but do we actually let it land? Does it actually get grounded in us because we do it every single day? Well, the truth really is if you do a great job for your clients, if you love your clients, if you take care of them, if you do your best with every single client, you owe it to your future clients, your potential clients, the people in your community, you owe it to them to do more deals. And guess what happens when you do more deals? You make more money. But you actually owe it to them because some other guy, some other agent who is, inexperienced or who doesn't actually legitimately care about their clients, they could end up taking that client and not serving them well and not helping them and really them having a bad experience because you weren't willing or able to scale, grow, communicate, market yourself. Get yourself, your presence, your business out in front of more people. It is your responsibility. If you are good at what you do, it is your responsibility to grow your business and to help more and more people. And that does not mean that you have to be a victim to your business. It doesn't mean that you have to see your family less or see your friends less or not have balance in your life. In fact, the opposite. When I stopped doing everything myself and I stopped allowing myself to be the bottleneck in my business, guess what happened? My business grew because I created more space. I created more space in my business and I created more space in my life. I started traveling more. I started turning off my phone or forwarding my phone. I started being an actual functional human being instead of a real estate zombie, which is really what I was doing when I was trying to do it all alone. So what did that look like? It looked like automation. It looked like creating systems. It looked like changing my lead generation. It was no longer based on chasing. I had to attract the people that I wanted to work with. I had to make things easier. This idea of the hustle, of the grind, this like kind of like almost sexualization of this sexy lifestyle of working so hard, it's not real. I don't want to be the hardest working person out there. I want to be the most efficient, effective person out there. Okay. And that really becomes the difference between, are you happy or are you busy? Because yes, you can be happy and be busy to a certain point. But if you truly, truly want to have both, especially if you're female and you're watching this, you get to have all of it. You get to be a fantastic partner, a fantastic mother, a fantastic agent, an extremely successful person. You get to have all of it. But the truth really is that it requires an element of letting go. It requires you to become that next level version of yourself. Because what is actually going to happen if you try to portray perfect, which we all do to a certain extent, you try to portray perfect without actually using the systems and without actually changing the way that you're going about your life and your business, you're going to end up really burnt out. Now, I'm at a point in my life where I have kind of taken it to the extreme. If you're on my team or you're in my programs, you know, I have an extremely leveraged team who are all smarter than me. I say that with the most gratitude in the world. Each and every person on my team is smarter than me in one way. I also have someone who helps me at home. I don't have kids, but we always joke around that like I have a nanny and she takes care of me and she makes sure that I have coffee on my desk and a shake in my hand when I need it, or I eat, or there's food prepared, or my house is clean, or my laundry's done. And she does all of these things. And I honestly would never have been able to do it or afford it if I hadn't allowed myself to up level and scale. If I was still feeling like I needed to do it all myself. The most painful place that you can be in your business is kind of successful, because people around you will see you as successful, but you will still be in a situation where you're doing it all yourself. And there is something incredibly, incredibly painful about being in that place. So in some markets, that's going to be even as high as 250,000. In some markets, it's going to be 100,000. In some markets, it's going to be 300,000, depending on the cost of living in wherever you are. But the truth really is, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, you owe it to your friends, and you owe it to your own mental health to get to that next level. It is way harder to make $250,000 than it is to make $1 million. And I know that that doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense, but in terms of like the systems, the processes, the scaling, the leverage, the lead gen, like the things that you need to do to get to that $1 million mark, once they're done, they're done. And once you have them, you have them. And then you don't actually have to work and grind for the rest of your life. If you choose to stay, I'm using 250 as an example, but if you choose to stay at that $250,000 mark, guess what happens? You have to stay in that pain of you doing everything forever. And eventually what ends up happening is you work yourself to retirement, or you work yourself to a point of exhaustion, or you lose the love that you have for this industry. I think that that's really important, and understanding the beliefs that are holding you back in terms of I have to do it all. No one else is going to be able to do it the way that I can do it. Guess what? I used to think the same thing. And now I have this incredible team of people who honestly, they do it better than I do. And the things that are on my plate and the things that I do, especially in my real estate business, were the things that were actually income generating activities and the things that I loved and the things that I was good at, and everything else that I wasn't was able to be handed off because I chose to take my business to that next level. And it was the best thing that I ever did because it gave me the freedom and it gave me the time and the spaciousness to really become and have what I wanted. So basically what I'm saying here is that it takes and requires decisive action every single day to get you to that point, even in the presence of fear and resistance. There's always going to be fear and resistance, guys. I still have fear and resistance. There are still going to be things that, you know, come at me that I have to make decisions on a daily basis that I think, whew, that's scary, or that next level is scary, or that investment is scary. And it's really truly about being that what would future Jess who has gotten to that next level, what decision would she make? Not what decision do I feel comfortable with right now? And I use this on a training that I gave yesterday to our 7-figure program. Our ego is intended to keep us where we are because it is safe and it's known. Whether we love where we are right now or not, it's safe. And they, you know, we've all heard the saying, like, the devil you know is, you know, I don't know, better than the devil you don't. That's not true, because you already know what it feels like to be where you are now. And you could be very happy where you are now, but the truth really is do you want to be in exactly the same place in 10 years? And if the answer is no, then you need to look at where you want to be 10 years from now and work backwards from it. So the two things that I have done, or the two major things that I have done, that I did and have done that really transformed my business, transformed my lifestyle, and also transformed the amount of time that I had and the spaciousness that I had, was number one, changing my lead generation, changing the way that I generated business. Everything that we do and everything that we teach is based on attraction. I will not teach another human being how to chase, because it is not scalable and it's not enjoyable. Those are the two questions I ask myself before we make decisions. Do I like it? Do I enjoy doing it? Or does the person who on my team is going to be doing it, does he or she enjoy doing it? And is it scalable? Because if it's not scalable, it's a no. Prospecting is not scalable. So we don't do it. We don't teach it. The next thing that is also incredibly important to remember is when you get to a point where you can leverage, you must leverage. The first step's always going to be your systems. The second step is going to be team. And it doesn't matter if you tell me that you don't want a team. I get it. I didn't want a team. But in order for you to have the best of both worlds, you're going to need some sort of a team. And it doesn't have to be a traditional team. It doesn't have to be a hierarchical team. It doesn't have to be you are responsible for everyone on your team. Your team can look a million different ways. And that's why I'm actually so excited to be writing the book that I'm writing, because I'm basically going to turn that millionaire real estate agent model on its head. Because does it work? Sure, it works, but it doesn't work for everybody. And it's pretty outdated. So I think that there's so much opportunity for people to understand that they get to have all of it without being a babysitter. If you have questions for me about any of this, let me know. I just wanted to kind of share that awareness that I've kind of come at. And a lot of the time, these patterns that we do perpetuate or that keep us small are the same patterns that are going to come up over and over and over again. And it's getting through those patterns or understanding that that next level version of us requires the next level version of us, right? Like the person who we are today is not necessarily going to feel super comfortable with the decisions that are going to get us to the next level. So if you have anything in front of you right now that is feeling a little stressful or is feeling a little bit fearful, or you're feeling some resistance around it, come at it from this lens of what would future Jason, Mary, Michael, whatever, whoever you are, if you're watching this, let me know that you're watching it. What would future me do? And what would that best, highest level version of myself do in this situation? What decision would they make if they weren't coming from fear or resistance or anything like that? If you have an experience like this, or you've overcome something like this, or you're in this right now, I would love you to comment on the video and talk to me about it. I think that this is something that we do need to talk about, because that lone wolf syndrome is something that has been kind of ingrained into us, that like we have to be good at everything and none of us are. And that idea that like we need to hustle and grind and suffer for success, I think is also something that in our society is quite broken, especially in this industry. You do not have to suffer to be successful. In fact, the more successful that you become, the less painful and the less suffering you should do. So there you go. Hope you're having a great day. I'll talk to you soon.